Here are Grandma's 29 old kitchen hacks you'll wish you knew sooner. Eggs in saltwater brine. Back then, refrigeration wasn't always available, so Grandma used saltwater brine to keep eggs fresh for months. The high salt content creates a natural barrier, preventing bacteria from entering the porous shell. To do this, dissolve 1 cup of salt per quart of water, submerge raw eggs, and store them in a cool, dark place. Always crack an egg into a bowl before use to check freshness. A simple trick, yet it kept kitchens stocked long before modern preservation. But what about the mess left behind from cooking? That's where an unexpected kitchen staple comes into play. Coffee grounds as a scrubber? Grandma never wasted a thing, and that included coffee grounds. Their gritty texture cuts through grease and grime without scratching surfaces. Sprinkle damp grounds onto a sponge, scrub pots and pans, then rinse clean. They also neutralize odors, making them a double-duty cleaner. Plus, they're compostable. Who knew yesterday's coffee could make today's dishes spotless? But resourcefulness didn't stop at cleaning. Some kitchen tricks turned basic ingredients into something far more valuable. Milk jar for butter making. No butter churn? No problem. Just grab a mason jar and some cream. Fill a mason jar halfway with heavy cream, secure the lid, and shake vigorously for 10 to 15 minutes until the fat separates. Strain out the buttermilk. Rinse the butter under cold water and knead to remove excess moisture. Add salt for flavor. Fresh, preservative-free butter in minutes, using nothing but patience and persistence. But not every kitchen hack was about making something from scratch. Some were about making sure everyday staples lasted as long as possible. Rice and salt shakers. Humidity turns salt into stubborn clumps, but here's a quick fix. Uncooked rice. The grains absorb moisture, keeping salt free-flowing even in damp conditions. Just add a teaspoon of dry rice to the shaker and shake it occasionally. No more clogged holes or uneven seasoning. A tiny tweak that makes a big difference. And while this trick kept things running smoothly, some old-school methods went beyond convenience. They made even the simplest dishes taste like they took hours to perfect. Homemade lasagna with simple ingredients. Forget complicated recipes. Grandma's lasagna is all about simple, hearty ingredients that pack big flavor. Start by layering cooked lasagna noodles with a mixture of ricotta cheese, an egg, and a pinch of nutmeg for creaminess. Simmer canned tomatoes with garlic, onion, and dried basil for a rich, homemade sauce. Brown ground beef or Italian sausage for extra depth, then layer everything with shredded mozzarella. Bake until bubbling and golden. Why does this work? The slow-baked layers meld together, creating a deeply satisfying dish. But what's a lasagna without perfectly whipped cream for dessert? Here's a trick you'll love. Chilled bowls for whipping cream. Do you want ultra-fluffy whipped cream that stays stiff longer? The secret is chilling your mixing bowl and beaters beforehand. Place them in the fridge or freezer for 15 to 20 minutes before whipping. When ready, pour in cold, heavy cream and beat until soft peaks form, then add sugar and vanilla for flavor. The cold environment helps fat molecules in the cream stabilize faster, giving you a thick, airy texture. It's a game changer for pies and cakes, but what if you need a silky smooth sauce for pasta? Grandma had a simple trick for that too, one that starts with a single base, pre-made roux. Thickening sauces has never been easier with Grandma's pre-made roux. Simply melt equal parts butter and flour in a pan, stirring constantly until it reaches a light golden color. Let it cool, then store it in an airtight container. When you need a creamy sauce, just whisk a spoonful into warm milk or broth. It dissolves instantly, thickening without clumps. The pre-cooked starch helps bind liquids quickly, creating smooth, rich sauces. This works for gravy, mac and cheese, or even soups. But when it comes to pasta, there's nothing like a fresh, slow-cooked sauce made from scratch. Making pasta sauce from scratch. Forget store-bought jars. Real pasta sauce is simple and full of flavor. Start by sautéing garlic and onions in olive oil until fragrant. Add crushed tomatoes, a pinch of sugar, and fresh basil. Let it simmer for at least 30 minutes, allowing the flavors to deepen. A splash of red wine enhances the richness, while a bit of butter at the end smooths it out. Why does this work? Slow cooking breaks down acidity and intensifies the natural sweetness of tomatoes. Before refrigeration, keeping food fresh was a challenge, and ice boxes were a clever solution. Have you ever wondered how they worked? Ice boxes before refrigerators. Long before modern refrigeration, ice boxes kept food cool using blocks of ice delivered by ice vendors. The ice was placed in an insulated compartment, and as it melted, cold air circulated to keep dairy, meats, and produce fresh. The insulation slowed melting, making ice last for days. This worked because cold air sinks, keeping the lower sections of the box the coldest. While we now rely on refrigerators, the old ways remind us how resourceful people were, but when it came to food safety, nothing was more crucial than sterilizing bottles properly, especially for babies and preserving food. Sterilizing bottles with boiling water. Grandma knew that boiling water was the simplest way to sterilize bottles. First, wash them thoroughly with soap and hot water. Then place them in a deep pot, cover with water, and bring to a rolling boil for 10 minutes. This high heat kills bacteria, ensuring bottles are safe for baby formula, canning, or homemade sauces. The science is simple. Boiling water destroys harmful microbes that could spoil food or cause illness. While we now have sterilizing machines, this method remains foolproof. And speaking of old school wisdom, did you know that some kitchen staples can surprisingly be used for flavoring? Pickle juice for flavoring. Don't toss that pickle juice. It's a flavor booster. Grandma used it to marinate meats, add tang to salad dressings, or give potato salad a zesty kick. Simply replace vinegar in recipes with pickle juice for extra depth. The acidity tenderizes meats, while the salty, spiced brine enhances flavors naturally. The vinegar and spices break down proteins, making dishes more tender and flavorful. It's an old trick that saves waste and adds punch to meals. But what about cleaning up after cooking? There's a simple seasoning trick that can keep cast iron pans in top shape without soap. Sprinkling salt for cleaning cast iron pans. Forget soap. Salt is the best way to clean cast iron without stripping its seasoning. After cooking, sprinkle coarse salt onto the pan and scrub with a paper towel or cloth. The salt acts as a gentle abrasive, lifting food residue while preserving the pan's natural non-stick coating. Rinse lightly, dry thoroughly, and rub with a thin layer of oil to maintain it. This method keeps cast iron smooth and rust-free. Keeping your cookware in top shape is great, but what about knives? You might be surprised at what this next item can do. Soap bars to sharpen knives. A dry soap bar isn't just for washing, it can keep knives razor sharp. Run the blade lightly along the edge of a soap bar, then wipe clean. The soap fills in tiny imperfections, making the blade glide smoothly through food. It also prevents rust when stored. The mild abrasiveness polishes the metal while creating a protective coating, keeping knives sharper for longer. A simple fix for dull blades. But sometimes the real struggle isn't cutting. It's dealing with rock-hard brown sugar. Instead of tossing it, a common kitchen staple can bring it back to life. Bread to soften hard brown sugar. When brown sugar turns into a solid brick, don't panic. Just add a slice of fresh bread to the container. Seal it tightly and let it sit overnight. The sugar absorbs moisture from the bread, returning to its soft, scoopable state. Brown sugar hardens when it loses moisture, and the bread acts as a natural humidifier. This trick works even better than a damp paper towel. But what if you have extra bread going stale? Instead of letting it go to waste, there's an easy way to turn it into something useful and delicious. Homemade breadcrumbs from stale bread. Stale bread doesn't belong in the trash. It's perfect for homemade breadcrumbs. Simply tear the bread into pieces and pulse in a food processor until fine. For crispy breadcrumbs, toast them in the oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit until golden. Dry bread absorbs flavors better and crisps up beautifully when cooked, making it ideal for coating meats, adding crunch to casseroles, or thickening soups. Store-bought breadcrumbs can't match the fresh taste of homemade. But when it comes to repurposing kitchen scraps, there's another pantry staple that can be transformed into something unexpectedly useful: reused bacon grease. Grandma never wasted a drop of bacon grease. It was liquid gold in her kitchen. After frying bacon, she let the grease cool slightly, then strained it through a fine mesh sieve or cheesecloth into a glass jar, ensuring no crispy bits remained. Tucked away in the fridge, it transformed into a silky, savory powerhouse for frying eggs, roasting vegetables, or giving biscuits that unmistakable richness. The smoky depth it adds is something no store-bought oil can replicate. Funny how the simplest things can make the biggest difference. And when it comes to keeping things fresh, some habits never fade. Tupperware for fresh food storage. Opening Grandma's fridge was like opening a treasure chest. Stacks of colorful Tupperware, each holding something carefully saved for later. She knew that airtight containers weren't just for convenience. They kept leftovers fresher, vegetables crisp, and bread from drying out. The trick? Always press out excess air before sealing and never store hot food while it's still steaming. The result was perfectly preserved meals, ready to be reheated and enjoyed. A simple habit, yet it saved so much time and effort. But not everything needs plastic. Some kitchen staples have been sealed tight in something sturdier for generations. Cooking with canning jars. Canning jars aren't just for preserves. They're built to last and endlessly versatile. I'll use them to store homemade soup in the freezer, bake single-serve desserts, or shake up a homemade salad dressing. Their thick glass makes them safe for hot liquids and cold storage, while their airtight lids keep flavors fresh. Unlike plastic, they don't hold on to odors or stains, making them a kitchen favorite for anything from dry goods to fresh ingredients. It's amazing how one simple jar can serve so many purposes. And when it comes to timeless classics, few things beat a meal that warms you from the inside out. Chicken and dumplings as a comfort meal. There's nothing like a steaming bowl of chicken and dumplings on a cold day. Simmer a whole chicken with onions, carrots, and celery until tender, creating a rich broth. Once the meat is shredded and returned to the pot, drop in soft, pillowy dumplings, letting them absorb the savory goodness. The result? A creamy, soul-warming dish that feels like home. Every bite carries a little nostalgia, a little love, and a whole lot of comfort. Some meals just hug you back. Once the last spoonful is gone, there's one kitchen trick that ensures only the flavors stay behind. Baking soda for cutting board odors. Garlic, onions, and fish can leave their mark long after the meal is over, but baking soda makes those odors disappear like magic. Sprinkle a generous amount onto the cutting board, add a splash of water, and scrub in circles. The natural abrasiveness lifts stubborn residue, while baking soda's deodorizing properties neutralize even the strongest smells. Rinse with warm water, and your board is as good as new. It's a small trick with big results. One of those little kitchen secrets that make life easier. And speaking of simple everyday solutions, there's another one you'll wish you knew sooner. Saving vegetable scraps for broth. Don't toss those onion skins, carrot peels, or celery ends. Turn them into liquid gold. Collect vegetable scraps in a resealable bag and store them in the freezer until you have enough for broth. When ready, toss them into a pot with water, add herbs like bay leaves or thyme, and simmer for an hour or more. Strain, and you've got a rich, flavorful broth without spending a dime. The natural flavors blend beautifully, creating a base for soups, stews, and sauces. Why buy what you can make for free? A little kitchen wisdom can even help speed things up. Salt to speed up boiling. Waiting for water to boil can feel like an eternity, but a simple trick makes it faster. Add salt. Sprinkle in a generous pinch before heating, and the boiling point rises, allowing the water to reach higher temperatures more quickly. This works because salt reduces water's heat capacity, meaning less energy is needed to bring it to a rolling boil. It's a tiny step that shaves off precious minutes when cooking pasta or boiling potatoes. Sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest impact. And when times were tough, people found even smarter ways to make the most of what they had. Victory gardens. During wartime shortages, families planted victory gardens to grow their own food, fresh vegetables, herbs, and even fruit. These small backyard plots provided essential nutrition while reducing reliance on ration goods. With careful planning, people grew everything from tomatoes to beans, making meals healthier and more sustainable. The best part? Homegrown produce tastes better and costs almost nothing. The tradition has made a comeback, proving that self-sufficiency never goes out of style. But resourcefulness didn't stop at food. People found creative ways to repurpose everyday items, sometimes in the most unexpected places. Biscuit tins for sewing kits. That empty biscuit tin isn't just a container. It's a perfect home for needles, thread, and buttons. Generations ago, families repurposed these sturdy tins to hold sewing essentials, ensuring that ripped seams and missing buttons could be fixed in a pinch. The metal kept everything safe from dust and spills, while its compact size made it easy to store. A quick rummage through Grandma's tin often revealed more than just thread. Sometimes there were surprises inside, like old thimbles or fabric scraps. Who knew an old cookie tin could hold so much history? Some everyday items still have hidden uses today. Clothespins for sealing bags. Think clothespins are just for laundry? Think again. They make perfect bag clips for chips, flour, and even frozen vegetables. Just fold the bag tightly and clip it shut to keep air and moisture out, ensuring freshness for longer. Unlike twist ties, clothespins are sturdy and reusable, making them a household staple long beyond their original purpose. It's a simple, effective solution that proves the best tricks are often the easiest ones. The real question is, what else in your home could be doing double duty? Bulk cooking for cost savings. Cooking in large batches isn't just a time saver, it's a money saver too. Instead of making single meals, double or triple your recipes and freeze portions for later. Start by choosing versatile ingredients like rice, beans, and proteins that can be used in multiple dishes. Prepare big batches of soups, stews, or casseroles, then divide them into meal-sized portions. Freezing meals reduces waste and eliminates the temptation of expensive takeout on busy nights. Why cook every night when one session can feed you all week? When leftovers pile up, there's one dish that turns them into something delicious. Shepherd's pie for leftovers. Do you have leftover meat and vegetables? Turn them into a hearty shepherd's pie. Start by sautéing onions and garlic in a pan. Then add any leftover cooked meat, beef, chicken, or even turkey, along with veggies and a splash of broth. Spread the mixture in a baking dish and top with creamy mashed potatoes. Bake until golden and bubbling. The layers blend into a warm, satisfying meal that feels brand new. It's the perfect way to give leftovers a second life. But not everything in the kitchen should be left to guesswork, especially when it comes to knowing if your eggs are still good. The egg freshness water test. Are you wondering if your eggs are still fresh? Drop one in a glass of water. If it sinks and lays flat, it's fresh. If it stands upright, it's still good, but should be used soon. If it floats, toss it. It's no longer safe to eat. Eggs lose moisture over time, causing air pockets inside to expand, which is why old eggs float. This simple trick saves you from cracking a bad egg into your batter. Who knew water could reveal so much? And speaking of simple ingredients, there's a humble pantry staple that can be turned into an unexpectedly delicious treat. Peanut butter, jelly, and banana toast. Take your classic peanut butter and jelly up a notch with a sliced banana twist. Start with toasted bread. Spread on creamy peanut butter, then add a layer of jam and fresh banana slices. The result, a sweet, salty, and satisfying snack packed with protein and natural sugars for energy. The creamy peanut butter, tart jam, and soft banana create the perfect balance of flavors and textures. It's an old-school favorite that never gets old. Some of the best meals are the simplest, proving that you don't need fancy ingredients to make something amazing. For more contents like this, click here to subscribe.